Hello and welcome back to my channel. I have 3 easy and delicious vegan recipes for you today. A full day of eating. We are going to be making breakfast tacos, a delicious sandwich, and a Cuban-inspired bowl. All high in protein, all super tasty. If you guys like these kind of videos, make sure you like this video and leave a comment below letting me know that you want some more recipes for me. I'm not a chef, so this is very realistic cooking. This is for busy people. This is for people who want to be healthy. Even if you're just new to the plant-based lifestyle, I got you. So let's get started. All right, so first meal of the day is going to be some breakfast tacos made with a tofu scramble. This is super easy to make. It's really light. If you wanted to make it heavier, you can increase the volume, or you can add black beans to it, or you can add more things to make it more calorically dense. But it's a super simple meal, so all you're going to need is some firm or extra firm tofu, some peppers. I have green, yellow, and a red pepper, a sweet Vidalia onion, some corn tortillas, some spinach or baby spinach is fine. You can even use any green vegetable that you like. I just think spinach cooks really well with this. And then we're only gonna use a little bit of tomato and avocado. The avocado is completely optional. And for our spices, we have nutritional yeast, we have curry powder, we have turmeric, we have ground cumin, I have some minced garlic, or you can do fresh cloved garlic as well, some sea salt, and then I have this Trader Joe's everything with a bagel seasoning, but you can use pepper, black pepper, any freshly ground pepper will do fine, but if you haven't tried this yet, it's bomb. No sponsor, just really passionate about this Trader Joe's seasoning. And then an option is to add a vegan cheese of choice. So I like using the Follow Your Heart mozzarella shreds. They melt really well and they go so good with tofu scrambles. So this is optional. I'm gonna be adding it today, but just know that if you're not into the processed foods or the vegan cheeses, you can totally forfeit this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to chop up these peppers and about half of the onion, and then we're going to chop them pretty small and then cook them in the pan. So now we have our onions and peppers nice and chopped up. So now I'm just gonna put a pan on medium-low heat. I'm gonna spray a little bit of cooking spray. You guys know I'm not really big on the oil, so I'm just gonna do a few sprays of this, throw these in and start letting them cook. And while that's cooking, we're gonna prepare the tofu. All right, so I'm gonna put the stove just on a kind of medium-low heat. I have a pretty big pan because keep in mind we're gonna be adding the tofu, so you wanna have enough room in your pan. And I'm just gonna take some cooking spray and just do like a little spray, enough to not allow it to stick too much, but I mainly am going to be adding water to this whole mixture as it's cooking so that we can avoid using an excess amount of oil. Actually, if you want, you can add the garlic first. I almost missed a step. Just gonna add some minced garlic to the equation. You can always add some more garlic powder or some nice chopped fresh garlic cloves. All right, so while we have those onions and peppers simmering, we're gonna prepare the tofu scramble. So I have some extra firm tofu. I prefer extra firm tofu. And I'm going to chop it up and put it in a bowl. And it doesn't have to be anything too crazy with this chop. We're just trying to get it to be easier to smash up because we're gonna try to scramble it. So just chop it up into some pieces. So now I have a fork and I'm just going to mash it up. You can really use any type of tofu. I prefer the firmer types of tofus because they don't need to be drained as much. And silken tofu needs to be pressed and takes a long time to cook. So extra firm is my go-to, and just make sure that you always use organic tofu. Okay, so now I'm going to add my seasonings to make it yellow and flavorful. So first I have some nutritional yeast here. And nutritional yeast is nice because it's high in B12, it's fortified with B12. And you can add as much or as little as you want. I like to add like a nice medium amount. And now I have curry powder, turmeric, and ground cumin, and I'm gonna be adding these as well. So now I'm adding some curry powder. And I have some ground cumin as well. All right, so here we have kind of the base of the tofu scramble, and as it's cooking in the pan, you can add more spices. I'm gonna add a little bit more minced garlic while it's cooking in the pan with the onions and peppers, so I'm going to throw it in. And a trick for cooking without oil is just adding a little bit of water as it continues to cook, so you get like a steamed effect. And it also helps keep the tofu from getting too dry when you're making tofu scramble the way that I make it, which is not the official way to make it, it's just how I do it. So now I'm going to add this tofu scramble mix. You can also make the tofu scramble in the pan, and I've done that before in previous videos, but this way works too. And like I said, you can add water as it's cooking, which is gonna prevent it from getting dry and eliminate the need to add oil. So a lot of times when we're cooking, we wanna keep on adding oil so that it doesn't stick to the pan, but you can actually just add water, and as long as you keep it nice and seasoned, cooking without oil is super easy. So I'm gonna add a little bit of water. So I have it right now on a medium-high heat, and I'm gonna like let it cook for a little bit, let it simmer, and then I'm gonna come back and like keep on mixing it. It's the same way that you would scramble eggs. It's the same concept, which is why we call it tofu scramble. Okay, so once we have the tofu nice and cooked, all we're going to do is add the spinach, and we want the spinach to steam, so you can cover it or you can add a little bit more water and add as much spinach as you like. I'm gonna add all of this because, as you know, when you cook spinach, it shrinks up. And then as you mix all of that in, you can have the option of adding your vegan cheese shreds, which is going to be the last step. And then after that, we're going to make our tacos. So once the tofu's been cooking for anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes on a medium heat, that's when you can add your spinach and mix that in. And then the last step, which is completely optional, is to add some nice melted vegan cheese. Follow your heart's cheese melts really well. And I'm just gonna add this on top. And I'm gonna give that anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes, or until I can tell that it's nice and melted. And while that cheese is getting melted, I'm going to take a smaller pan and heat up a few of the corn tortillas so that we can have our tacos ready. Okay, so now we're ready to assemble our breakfast tacos. I have the tortillas, I heated them up really easily in the pan. And I have the tofu scramble mixture all nice and cooked up. So I'm just going to pour it in here. And like I said, if you wanted to add black beans, if you wanted to add any extra spices, this would go great with hot sauce as well. And then we're just gonna chop some tomatoes and avocado. And then we got breakfast. And there we have some breakfast tacos. Alrighty, so now we're on to lunchtime, and we're going to make a really easy marinated tofu and veggie sandwich. You can also use tempeh and make it smoky. You could change the marinade and make it barbecue. The main concept is we're going to have some whole grain bread, which we're gonna put the sandwich on. We're gonna have tomato, lettuce, cucumbers, avocado, and I have alfalfa sprouts over here. And then for the protein, I'm gonna be using tofu, but like I said, tempeh is amazing with this recipe as well. Or you can use some Gardein vegan chicken cutlets or anything else like that. So first thing we're gonna do is prepare the tofu. So I'm going to cut it in a steak-like shape. So I'm actually gonna cut it long ways. This is about enough to make 3. All right, so for our marinade, all we need is some balsamic vinegar, Bragg's liquid aminos, or you can use the low sodium soy sauce. So for the marinade, I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of liquid aminos for every 1 tablespoon of balsamic, ground cumin, a little bit of curry powder and garlic powder, and some sea salt. All right, and then because we don't want to break the tofu, you want to be very gentle when you kind of let the dressing soak it up. And we're just gonna stick this in the fridge for as little as 20 minutes or as long as overnight. So this is just a really simple marinade. Like I said, you can do sliced tempeh instead, or you can use some vegan chicken if you wanted to, but tofu is a super easy option. So now I'm just gonna put this in the fridge for 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, we have our tofu nice and marinated. So now, all I'm gonna do is put a pan on a low heat, spray it with just a little bit of oil like I did earlier, and then I'm just going to cook the tofu steak on it until it turns crispy. Safely flip it over so it doesn't fall apart. Cook the other side, and then we're going to assemble our sandwich. And for those of you who are new to cooking tofu, I always tell people just cook it the same way that you would prepare the meat. So how do we prepare meat? We marinate it in our favorite seasonings, and then we cook it until it turns brown and flip it over. Or you can bake it if you don't want to cook it in a pan. You can even grill it on a grill. That's pretty much how you cook tofu. It's not too hard. So I'm gonna let this get nice and crispy. And while that's happening, I'm gonna throw 2 pieces of whole grain bread in the toaster so that's nice and toasty, so then we can assemble our sandwich. All right, so we have our tofu steak, nice and crispy and ready to go. But before we put that on our sandwich, we are going to take a quarter of an avocado and just kind of chop it up into a bowl. And I'm going to add some garlic powder and some sea salt and just mash it up. So this is one simple way that you can make a spread so that you don't have to use mayonnaise, but you can of course use a vegan mayo, you can use mustard, you can use all different kinds of sauces, but this is just super clean because all it is avocado with garlic and salt. So now I just have this really easy garlic spread. I have my toasted multigrain bread, and I'm gonna spread this on both sides. And actually I'm going to add just a little bit of lemon juice, which I could have added while I was mixing it, but I forgot. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of lemon juice to that. So now I'm gonna come back to my nice tofu steak, or if you're using marinated tempeh strips, that works wonderful too. Oh, this fits so nicely on there, wow. Wow, pat on my back for that. Okay, and now we're going to take some lettuce. Coming back to the tomato that I used earlier today, so you'll see that we make this tomato last, no food waste. Put my tomato on there, and I'm going to chop it about the length of the bread. So if you're using a larger bread, you can of course take bigger slices of it. Also take some alfalfa sprouts, take as much as you like. And now we have this delicious humongous sandwich. And then we have this super easy, really quick tofu and veggie sandwich. All right, so we had breakfast tacos, we had a nice juicy sandwich for lunch, and now we're going to make dinner, which is going to be a Cuban-inspired bowl. So if you guys don't know this, I'm half Cuban. My dad's from Camagüey. So I grew up eating lots of Cuban food. I don't cook it as good as my parents do, but I wanted to make a Cuban-inspired vegan bowl. So all you're gonna need is white rice, some tomato, a white onion, avocado, just 1 lime or some lime juice, a green pepper, a plantain, and you want to get it as ripe as possible. I prefer to get a plantain that's pretty much all black on the outside, but this was as ripe as I could get it for today. And then we're gonna get some black beans. You can either get raw beans and soak them, or you can just use canned beans, which is what I'm gonna do today. And for spices, I have some more minced garlic, or you can do fresh clove garlic, some cilantro. I have turmeric, bay leaves, garlic powder, ground cumin, curry powder, which is optional, and I have sea salt. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare the beans. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna chop up half a green pepper and some onion, and we're going to put that in a pan and let that simmer, and then we're going to add our beans. So if you're cooking the beans raw, you're gonna wanna have them pre-cooked before you start this dinner recipe. Okay, so now we're gonna make the rice. There's 2 options here. You can just cook some plain white rice, or cilantro white rice, that works great too. I'm going to spice up my rice. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take my rice that's already been washed and prepared, and I'm only gonna make a cup today. And with rice, it's about 1 to 1. So I'm just gonna put 1 cup of rice, add 1 cup of water. And I'm actually going to add the seasonings to it before it cooks. That way it cooks all nicely together. And measurement wise, when it comes to seasonings, I'm not crazy about measuring them. I'm real big on eyeballing it and tasting it and adding more as I go. But it's gonna be less than, it's gonna be about a teaspoon or less for each seasoning if you're making about a cup of rice like this. So I'm gonna add turmeric, my ground cumin, my garlic powder, and then just a dash of curry powder, not too much. I'm gonna mix that up. Now I'm gonna cover this, put it on the stove, wait until it pokes little holes through so I know that it's cooked. If you have a rice cooker, even better. Okay, so for plantains, there's a few different ways you can cook them. You can fry them, you can slice them vertically and steam them. That's one way to make them. I'm just going to peel it, slice it on a diagonal, and then cook it in a pan with just that little bit of cooking oil. I'm not gonna completely fry it in oil, which is of course the right way to do it, but I'm trying to make this as clean and healthy as possible. Okay, so we have the plantain peeled, and now I'm just going to chop it on a diagonal like this. So I got my plantain cut up, and I'm gonna take a pan, spray a little bit of cooking spray on it, and I'm gonna cook them until they get as crispy and cooked as possible. The last thing we're gonna do is the kale. And I'm adding the kale just to put some more greenery in here and just to add even more fiber to this meal. But you can forfeit the kale. You can use a different vegetable like broccoli or spinach. And I'm just gonna go ahead and steam the kale with some garlic and salt. Keep it super simple and clean. Okay, so when our bowl is ready, we're gonna top it with some pico. You can skip this. You can do just raw onions if you want. And know that I am not a chef. I say that all the time because this is some amateur pico. So all I have is a tomato, the same tomato we've been using all day, some white onion, a lime or some lime juice, and then I have some cilantro, and we're gonna add salt as well. So I'm just going to chop up the tomato and the onion as fine as I can, but I'm gonna save a little bit of the raw onion as well. So I'm only gonna use maybe a quarter of this onion that's left. All right, so now I'm gonna take my tomatoes and my onions, put them in a bowl, put some lime juice, add some sea salt. So this is going to be our topping that we put on top of our bowl. So we have that ready. Now we're ready to assemble our bowl. We have everything nice and cooked. So I have the rice that we cooked in those spices. So those spices make it yellow and delicious. So here is our base. Now we have our beans. And then we have the garlicky steamed kale or whatever green veggie you prefer. And last but not least, we have our grilled plantains. We're just going to top it off with some avocado right there. And then we have our pico to top it off. And there we have this Cuban-inspired super easy vegan bowl. So there you have it, 3 super easy, delicious vegan meals with some variety. We had the breakfast tacos, we had the juicy tofu sandwich, and then we had the Cuban-inspired bowl with black beans and plantains. And you can, of course, mix up the ingredients however you want, switch out the vegetables, add more seasonings or less seasonings, whatever suits you best. I hope that this was super helpful and that you can try these recipes out and that they make going vegan or trying to eat a healthier plant-based lifestyle a lot easier. Make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss another one of my uploads. I have everything from cooking videos to videos about my life to twerk and dance tutorials. So anything you need, got you, sis. Don't forget to follow me on socials as well. And until next time, sending you love and light as always.